We now reconvene the meeting to public session. Will you please rise for the pledge? Just before we start, the district is going to pass the three former employees, Leslie, Shannon Woodley, Ann Washington. Sign this.
Chris, can we add Jackie Fenning to that list, because we never did anything for her passing.
Sure, and Jackie Fenning as well. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Ready? Yeah, he's up. He's just muted. He's muted? No, he just doesn't have his camera.
Oh, okay.
But he's,
Will you hear me if I talk to him?
Yep.
Ross, we are ready for you, so you can turn your camera on, please. Thanks. Perfect, thank you.
Okay.
I'll practice it, yeah.
Okay.
So, just so everybody has some context, we have brought Mr. Haber back to share some additional findings after he presented his initial information at our last meeting, and certainly we did receive a lot of feedback surrounding that. The administrative team also wanted to review some additional iterations of possibilities. Certainly, as we all know, part of the rationale for wanting to look at some different configurations is obviously to continue to move forward to a more financially healthy future for the district, in addition to creating more equity in class sizes across the district and programming across the district. So we went back and re-engaged with Mr. Haber and said, could you possibly run some additional iterations that look at cost savings? And you know, as we know, potentially cost savings comes in the form of staffing and buildings, and you know, obviously he is familiar with our infrastructure now and our class sizes, and you know, he took that all into consideration. We also shared with him the plan that we had proposed last year, so that way he had some knowledge of that, to weigh that out against, you know, other iterations that he was going to be looking at on his end. So he is going to be sharing his findings from those conversations that we had, and his work tonight with the public.
Okay. First of all, good evening, everybody. So, just a very quick overview. When we started the project, one of the requests from the district was, could we find a way to close 1 or 2 or 3 schools if possible due to financial reasons. So we started out with that in mind. But two things happened. Number one, in the process, one of the things that we did, and it was full knowledge of working with the administration, was that we did not conclude pre-kindergarten or self-contained classrooms. We only listed instructional space in the building for gen ed and mainstream students to see how we could go about changing things, maybe closing the school. Well, after numerous iterations over the past 6-7 months prior to the January meeting, there just was not enough space to close a school. So in the end, what we did is we made the January presentation. What we did is try and do a little bit of minor redistricting, which involved about 125 or so students, to maybe get better use of the instructional space. Obviously, that was not met with the greatest enthusiasm by the district, and I can understand that, okay? Because one, the original mandate was to try and close school, but physically we couldn't do that. There was just no way to do that. So after the January meeting, we went back and met with administration, and a decision was made that pre-K students and special needs students could be relocated in other parts of the district. There were mobile, I don't want to say mobile programs, but they were district-wide programs, and superintendent told us, yes, she could do that. So we were given the gift of 14 students, I'm sorry, 14 additional classrooms, which gave us a lot more opportunities. The other thing that we did is that in the original mandate, we were constrained by capping all classes at 25. And what we found is that if we could have a little flexibility there, okay, not a huge amount, but if we came across one or two sections or grade levels that were bubbles that might force us to go to 26 or 27 kids, it would be for one group for 1 year. Would that be possible? Again, giving us more flexibility. Not that it was desirable to go to 26 or 27 children in a classroom. We know that's not desirable, it's not educationally sound. We believe that. But again, we just wanted some more flexibility. So we went through the process of doing this, and we were able, and we targeted 2 schools. One in the south, which was Riverbank, and one in the north, which was Navesink. We were able to do this. Okay, we're able to effectively close schools and find enough classroom space throughout the district to do this. 3 things that emerged from that. One, yes, we could do that. But the second thing that came out of that, it was going to increase class sizes considerably. In fact, we wound up with something like 5 sections of 26 students throughout the district, and 5 sections of 25 students. So throughout the district, district-wide, we had several sections of 26 students and several sections of 25 students, and the rest of the district was in the low 20s, 21, 22, 23. So we did that. Again, the problem we came across was, again, the class sizes were larger than we might be desired. Now, did it give us room for growth? I think we explained in our last presentation, we explained that there are 2 kinds of capacity. One is called horizontal capacity, and one is called vertical capacity. What horizontal capacity is, it gives you the number of classrooms that exist in the district. So we looked to see, if we did our projection, how many classrooms district-wide would we have? How much horizontal capacity would we have? And it turned out, after doing this, we had a net of 3 classrooms across the district-wide, that were of no use in terms of our districting, but of course they could be put back with special needs or pre-kindergarten, along with the other things that Dr. Alphone intended to do with those 2 groupings. So anyway, we put this together. We came up with a matrix. We showed what the class sizes would look like across the board. Again, as I said, very doable. Okay, very, very doable. But the other part of this too, as I said earlier, is that because every single school in the district would be involved, every single elementary school in the district would be involved, it would create a movement of about between 700 and 800 students would be moved. Given the 485 in Navesink and Leonardo, and Navesink and Riverbank, given those, that was 485. But on top of that, another 300 to 400 students would have to be moved to make up the capacity in each of the schools. So we brought that into a report. We reported that back to the superintendent. I wrote a memo to the Board of Education regarding that, with a table that shows the class sizes. Concurrently, we also took a look at the 24-25 proposal, which would close Navesink and Leonardo, move those students into Bayshore, which has more than enough capacity to hold them. And in looking at that, it seemed to us, it looks like it's actually be much less disruptive to the school district. Class sizes would probably be lower than the ones that we're presenting in our 2-school closing, and there would be room to growth, and even there would be space in that building possibly to include some of the special needs classes and some of the pre-K students. The only disadvantage I could see to that is that because you're bringing kindergarten students in there might have to be some renovations to lavatories because it is a middle school. But in looking at both of these proposals, it's our opinion that we believe that because of the class sizes, it is probably more advantageous to the district to go with the middle school proposal, the one from 24-25. We believe it to be less disruptive. It does close 2 schools. And we think it would work. And down the road, we also put in our recommendation, down the road, it might be desirable to close Riverbank in the south, but it could be done years down the road. But that might require.
Quiet, please. No decisions have been made. Everybody will have a chance for public comment after.
Not in the right school.
Oh, no, we're not, we're making an overall report, okay? To the board. That's all we're doing. We're saying that there are two options on the table, okay? One is closing Riverbank and Navasink. The other is closing Navasink and Leonardo and moving those kids into Bay Shore and doing what needs to be done, okay? We think in the short term, the recommendation from the superintendent from 24-25 probably makes more sense. It's less disruptive, and it does save two schools. That's just our opinion. The data is there. It's a board decision, and we leave it to that. All we did was provide the data that these two things could happen. Okay? And board, I'm open to questions from the board.
I have a question. How does this improve student outcomes?
We didn't look into that.
Well, isn't that the most important part?
That's not part of our study. Was defined space. That was our study. Okay. And the only thing I can say is that that's dependent on class sizes. But we did not study. Our study was enrollment. To be clear, enrollment projections, facility analysis, and redistricting. Those are the three mandates to give you the data to make that decision. In the RFP, there was nothing about educational outcomes.
I think that's very important. That's what our goal is here.
And what about the middle school?
Everything else is secondary to that.
And there's no capacity for it.
Yeah.
We can't have people yelling from, it's now time for board discussion. There'll be a time for public comment. I'm asking you, just please, let's have an orderly meeting, and you'll have an opportunity to speak. There's no votes being taken tonight. There's no action on the agenda. This is for informational purposes only, and it's a presentation.
I would like for him to speak, now that the public's here, about what he said before, how this all came about, when the reports came out, how people had this information, not board members, beforehand. It should have been shared before tonight. I would like you to go back to your presentation that you started before when we cut you off and explain to the community how this all came about.
I'm not sure I understand what I thought it just gave an overview. I'm not sure what.
Well, I guess maybe start over with your overview,
Okay, if
the
that's
way you started earlier.
Okay, again, an RFP was put out by the district, to which we responded. The RFP basically asked us to do an enrollment projection, okay, to then take that projection, apply it to the existing facilities, and then see if those projections, those existing facilities, could accommodate the possible closing of 1, 2, or even 3 schools.
I'm talking more about the part where you came out where you thought we already had the information as a board.
I sent the memorandum, I gave it to the superintendent, I don't know what you did. It was just, okay, I just provided the memorandum, you should have that.
And could you tell, because it sounds like a lot of the audience and I would really like to know the impact on the middle schools with your middle school proposal?
I turned that over to the superintendent, that's her proposal.
Yeah, but how do you see the enrollment there? How do you
Well,
see it affecting
you've
the
got-
kids and
you've
the
got-
overcrowding?
You've got more capacity in the middle schools than the combination of Navasink and Leonardo combined.
But those are two small schools.
Even if you close.
And you've got a 500 and an 800 student to it. Again, I didn't do this study, so I'm only telling you what I read in the study beforehand. There seems to be, well, my understanding is enough capacity until middle school to accommodate patients.
Not even remotely. Where did you get that?
Were you given any direction on where to go, or you just came up, whoever did this report, obviously it wasn't you, whoever did this report? I mean, what
I don't-
direction were they given about the
We
middle
shared
school?
with him our iteration from last year, so he would have a reference point and be able to weigh that against other iterations that he was running. The historical capacity of Thompson has been in the 900s, and the projections stay within them over the course of the next 5 years in that model. Same thing with Thorne. We provided him with that information because we were able to we can roll up our attendance, we can roll up our enrollments from year to year because we know what our enrollment is currently. So that is how he got that information. We shared that with him because he was examining other things.
But filling those schools up just because the capacity was there, we heard from Thompson for many years that the school is overcrowded.
When it was at 1150, which it has not been.
Because the kids don't have the same opportunities, they don't have the
Right.
sporting
Right,
opportunities.
but
they
there,
don't have the job
but you
opportunities.
could do other things where you could offer more options for those activities. For instance, having a 6th, 7th, and an 8th grade team separately. Many middle schools that are large do that.
Any other questions from the board?
Are we gonna let the public ask questions?
Not right now, Ed, public
Well, he's
comment.
gonna go away, aren't they gonna be
He's
able
not
to
gonna
ask
get,
them?
no, they're not gonna get to engage with him.
This is, Joan, this is gonna be
It's
a
a board-
board
it's a
decision.
board decision.
It's a board
I
decision.
get it, but there's a lot of questions out there.
I understand. I
And just the
understand.
way this whole thing started before, and we put a stop to it in closed session so that the public could hear it, the way we heard it wasn't, we were shocked by the way we heard what he was saying.
He was always supposed to do a public presentation. And we followed up with doing an exec today. We asked him to do both.
Well, when we came last week, all our voices were taken away, ours and the public, and I think that they should have a right to ask the questions.
And you have,
They don't
thank you.
engage with the
And the public will have an opportunity to comment, absolutely.
comment.
Comment.
Why?
Comment. If you have a question, you can ask the question, and we'll answer the question. Or if it has to be researched, then we'll get back to you with an answer.
I have a question
Mr.
for Ross
Bagley.
Saber. Could you just be clear and reiterate, so what are you recommending? Because I feel like I'm all over the place.
I think that, okay, I'm recommending the least, okay, I believe that the data in the middle school proposal is accurate, that it can accommodate the 2 schools, okay? I read the report, I looked at the projections, I didn't do that report, but I think it's least disruptive. I think that the other one, the first one, is a little cleaner in terms of attendance zones, because it doesn't require you to do anything with those particular buildings in terms of kindergarten, pre-kindergarten. The bathrooms are there, all of that stuff is in place. So I think both can work. All I'm saying is that the class sizes in the 2 school closing, Navasink and Riverbank, those class sizes are a little bit large, but you can look at them. You've got the table, and you can make a determination. I'm talking to the board, and the board has that information. You can make a determination, can it work? The big question is, can growth occur in that? Okay, can growth occur in that 2 school recommendation, the Navasink and Riverbank? Growth can occur vertically. There may be some classes that get large, that get above 26. In this past, they said there were five classes to 26 and 5 to 25, which is the max. Will there be a time when it's possible that 1 or 2 of those sections go to 27? It's possible.
Now it's 27.
That recommendation absolutely can work. It's got the advantages of clean boundaries. It's got the advantage of making no major changes in the middle schools, and it can work. It's a matter of taking a look at those class sizes. If you're comfortable with them, that's fine. But also keep in mind, we're going to be moving, the district got very upset at the notion of moving 120 kids. In this, we're going to move between 700 and 800 students if you go with that one. And if you're comfortable with that, that's great. Both can work, okay? I think that the middle school one is less disruptive. over time. It only moves initially the children from Navasink and Leonardo. I'm just telling you, I'm not arguing, I'm just trying to express what the data says, that's all. Okay,
Can I ask another question? What has your study done to address the class sizes in Lincroft and the possible well, it's not possible, they're gonna be building more townhouses or homes there. That school is at capacity. What does this report do to relieve that capacity?
The projections we made include any potential new housing. So, and Lincroft remains the way it is. It doesn't make many changes in Lincroft. Lincroft, you can look at the class size, okay, there's room for growth there. There is a shortage of 2 classrooms in that building. There was just, again, by 1 or 2 students, okay? But it's very difficult to make any change there. There's just no place to move them.
So then we just leave it like that and we depend on the new development to overcrowd it?
Well, our projections aren't showing that.
Did you look at the new development that was just approved?
Absolutely. And anything in the projection includes data housing that we got from planning and zoning.
I think the original presentation had projections through 2030, if I remember correctly. Is that right?
Yeah, but it's
That's only elementary.
There
only
were-
elementary.
That's where you start your projections.
Yeah.
I just think the projection doesn't show the areas that are overcrowded.
And you could eventually, in the long term of a plan, shift kids out of Lincroft with some natural boundaries like he showed in the first presentation. However, you would need to create capacity in those other buildings, either by building or by moving kids across to other buildings where there is seat space.
Yeah, this is a very simple concept, okay? You can't move buildings. The buildings are there. You can't change the size of buildings. When you do redistricting, like we did, we have to look at contiguous boundaries, right? We have to look at, can we move kids from building A to building B? Because those buildings have capacity. If the buildings next door to them don't have capacity, we can't do that. The only thing that could, and because of the age and the size of some of your buildings and the difference in size, it may require some renovation over time. That's what we talked about a little bit when we considered the middle school proposal, that it may be at some point, you may be able to do some changes, but it's going to require renovation. Your buildings are finite. They only have so much capacity. Okay, even with the 14 classrooms that were given back to us, in order to do the second iteration, we're still tight. As I said, district-wide, we have a net of 3 classrooms, which are not helpful in terms of redistricting because of their location, but they can be used again for special needs. They can be used for pre-K, whatever else. So the constraints are not only our constraints also consider school size, school location, and also location of students. That's what really drives these things, along with class size and things like that. You've got 2 proposals in front of you. The middle school one is a little more comfortable because it inconveniences or less children. The first one of the 2 school closing, Riverbank and Navasink, just have slightly higher class sizes. Again, your decision. You've got the data. You've got the data from my report, the data from the 24-25 report. That's what you got to weigh.
Closing any other schools?
I'm not sure. Ask the question. I don't know.
Didn't he also mention about selling the land?
No, that would be that's the board's decision. He doesn't.
As a suggestion, yes.
Well, I mean, anytime you close a school, you have property to either sell, lease, to generate revenue in some way. But that doesn't solve the budget. That just provides money for potentially other things or reserves.
Did you do any financial reporting on any of this?
No, it was not part of the proposal. In other words, financial reporting say,
Well, hold on a second. Who was on the board at the time when this proposal was approved? For him to do
This
this?
proposal was not approved.
It was never approved.
So he just randomly did this presentation?
Jess is feeding him information.
This proposal was never approved.
I asked in
It
finance
was
the other
turned
night,
down by the
Chris,
state.
about 4 schools, and I was told there wasn't 4 schools mentioned last year, but there were. So how, if everybody that's presented the plan last year to now doesn't know there were 4 schools last year, then who knows what the real plan was? Because I don't.
First of all, may I say, our proposal was approved by the board, and we reissued a purchase order, so there's no hanky-panky. We provided a proposal.
Your firm, yes, was approved by the board, not the proposal of closing schools.
Read the,
That's what, the only thing that this board approved was his contract.
Which
To
the
go
contract,
forward.
which the contract did ask him to look at closure of schools.
But we didn't, Chris is saying who approved the plan last year.
Oh,
He's
nobody
talking
approved
about
the
the
plan.
plan, we did not approve the plan.
Well, I
We
mean,
only
in all
approved his
fairness,
proposal for him to go look into the study, that's it.
Well, that's the study,
right, and
that's the
we,
recommendation.
at least my understanding of this too, was that we were gonna come back with several different proposals, which also would have included an entire redistricting and moving of lines across the entire town as option 1, which would have looked at different savings in different schools and also for transportation, and then moving into other different scenarios. That's what my understanding was, is that was gonna come back. And then even from his own words tonight, saying that there was many discussions back and forth and many numerous iterations over the period of 6 months. Quite honestly, we've been waiting for 10 months for something, and we didn't get anything.
Yeah, it's just a fact, Chris, we did not last year, and not everybody on this board is on the same page of what that plan was. It was rammed down like it was tonight.
No, I don't think it was rammed out. He
It
just-
was rammed down.
No, we're not voting on any of his recommendations that
We
was
get
set
that,
forth.
I get that, I'm just saying the way it's
And
presented
the board
was the
doesn't
same
have
way
to
as
accept
last
either
year.
one.
I just think it should be more long-term. I mean, we need to be looking at
Yeah,
5,
I-
10, 15,
you know
20
what?
years, not what's gonna get us to next year with a Band-Aid and then
Close
we're
more
talking
schools
about it.
next year.
And we tried the Band-Aid approach last year, and we'll get into that when I give my finance report. I'm sure you can, you're gonna wanna hear it, trust me. Yeah, is there any other questions from the board for?
We could always email him if we have additional follow-up questions. Yeah, you can take him on. Thank you, Ross. If we have any additional follow-up questions, we'll email you and reach out.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Moving right along for committee reports, co-curriculum, Mr. Saparowski.
All right. The co-curricular, we met on Tuesday? Wednesday. We reviewed the district's current tracking process for clubs and activities. The administration presented us with electronic spreadsheets that are currently being used to track sign-ins and sign-outs for clubs to make sure that there is actually attendance at the clubs. It's being piloted right now at Bayshore. They ran us through the whole system, showed, that you're actually seeing the attendance of the children at the club. And the plan is for all co-curricular clubs and activities district-wide to have the sign-in and sign-out beginning next school year.
Mark, I had a question for that.
Yes.
If you don't mind. So is this just something we're doing on our own in terms of?
So we're doing this just
Using a regular database, or is this an actual program?
This is through
that we're
Genesis.
paying for? Okay.
through the Genesis portal. Actually, they showed it, and it's pretty good because it has all the contact information for the coaches or the club advisors if they need to get,
Okay.
Emergency contacts. Everything is streamlined into Genesis so that it's a one-stop portal rather than different sheets and having to cross-reference things. And it also shows the attendance at the activities to see if they're still viable.
Okay, great, thanks. I just wanted to make sure that this wasn't something new that we were
It
getting.
is not
at,
new,
it's
it's
existing. Okay.
using the Genesis that is
Thank you.
existing. For athletics, The winter sports are all winding down. The middle school season has concluded, and the high schools are currently in the playoffs competitions. Spring season is scheduled to begin on March 9th. We also discussed girls flag football, which continues to grow in popularity, and the state is moving to make it an NJSIAA sanctioned sport. So that will prohibit athletes from participating on multiple teams during that season. That'll start next year also. At High School North, low enrollment may impact the ability for a boys tennis team this year. They just don't have enough signups. And finally, girls wrestling participation continues to increase. So at this point, there is an anticipation that there will be a team at both schools, hopefully, girls wrestling team. But if not, there will be one team between the two schools. So more attention to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cypress. Curriculum, Ms. Wright?
Yes, so we met last night, and we had a lot of things to discuss. Some of it is still sort of in flux here in terms of some of the pilots. So one of the things that we talked about was the iReady diagnostic and also the MyPath. We've been talking a lot about that as a board. I know the community has raised some concerns about it. One thing that we were looking at is a survey did go out to the teachers to talk about their feelings about iReady and how they use it in the classroom, if they think it's effective, and what they actually use it for. So we're able to look a little bit at that data last night and have some discussions about things that we may want to be able to change going forward. So the only thing I'll say right now is committee is still talking a lot about that, and so hopefully there'll be some decisions that are going to be made very soon. So there's more to come. As you all know, we've reported on this in the past, that there's 2 different pilots happening through K-5 as we try to land on what the new math program is going to be for the next school year. We've been looking at iReady and Amplify. So we've been hearing some of the feedback that has been coming from the teachers who are piloting both of those in their classrooms. And so again, looking to make a decision on that very soon for the next school year starting in September. If you don't know, or if you do know, recently it was a new bill that was signed by Governor Murphy before he left, that cursive writing is going to come back into the schools in grades 3 through 5. So we talked about what that's going to look like for next September, and that will actually start in the new school year, which I think we all agree is a really great thing to have C come back into the curriculum. There are some field trips that are going to be on the agenda for Tuesday for us to consider. We talked about the really great news that 14 of our students applied and were accepted into the Teen Arts New Jersey program, which is run by Brookdale Community College. So we're really great to see that number continue to increase and allow our students really to be able to shine in terms of what they're able to do in the arts, which is accompanying acting, dancing, painting, and also vocal music. I do believe there is going to be an art show. Mr. Cohen, is that correct?
Yes.
I don't know if we have the date yet though, right?
We do have the date, I'll just have to look for it.
Okay, so I want to make sure everybody gets that out, and so we can get it on our calendars, because I think it's a really great thing, obviously, to continue to support our students and the great work that they do. Last month I talked about the DIBELS screener that was administered through K-3, and we're now starting to get that data back and look at it. But the other really good thing that is going hand in hand with this is that on the last professional development day for the teachers, which happened I think a week or so ago, or 2 weeks ago, was all focusing on DIBELS and how to use that data now in terms of driving individual instructions for their students in the classroom, and also identifying those students who may need extra services as well at a very early age, which is extremely important. Read Across America is happening the week of March 2nd through the 6th. I believe that, as in the past, invitations are going to be going out to board members to come into classrooms and read to the students. So hopefully we'll all be able to fit that in during that week at some point. As usual, professional development will be on the voting agenda for us to consider next Tuesday. Dates that are really important, if they have not gone out already, but just to reiterate here, is College Application Information Night will be happening at both high schools. North, it will be Thursday, March 5th, 6:30 here at the Media Center. High School South, it will be Thursday, March 19th, 6:30 at the Media Center. We have the financial aid webinar that is going to be happening again with Matt Mulhern, and that's going to be via Zoom on Thursday, April 16th, and I believe information is going to be going out about that to the two high schools as well. And that's pretty much it, I think, from what we went over.
Great. And Mrs. Wright, our art showcase will be at the MAC. It essentially spans through March, so you're looking at art pieces from K to 12 students that will be showcased from March 7th through March 27th at the MAC, and that's open from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Facilities, Ms. Munoz.
We had a meeting the other night, few things that are coming up on the agenda. We have the renewal of the grass cutting bid. It's a contract renewal with Diamond Property Maintenance for the term of March 1st, 2026 to 2/28/27, as per the bid for 24/25 in the amount of $86,000, no increase from the prior year. The contract covers all elementary schools with the exception of Harmony and also Bayshore. Custodial equipment will be on there for purchase of Chariot scrubbers, which are floor machines, from Scroll System in the amount of $52,759. This equipment was included in the 25-26 budget. Current facility issues going on. There was a steam leak at Harmony. Mr. Nazer reported that there was a steam leak above the ceiling tiles in the boys' bathroom at Harmony. During the repair process, some mold growth was identified and remediated. Indoor air quality testing was performed after the repairs and removal of the mold was completed. No issues were noted. Piping and infrastructure. Mr. Nazar showed the committee sections of a heating pipe and water piping to demonstrate the aging that is occurring. The heating pipe that burst was from New Monmouth. Repairs were made and the section of the heating coil was replaced. We also discussed UV lighting disinfection procedures. Mr. Nazer and Mrs. Doherty shared a draft of standard operating procedures for the utilization of the mobile UVC disinfection. The district establishing thresholds for the use of the UV lighting for disinfection based on the presence of a suspected outbreak. The definition of outbreak used in the NJDOH general guidelines for the prevention and control of outbreaks in educational settings. The selected staff will be trained on the use of this device and enhance our manual cleaning products. And that was my concern during that. Was there any concerns for the staff using this? And it was explained they're going to be trained and only certain people will be able to use it. The 26-27 budget, operating, we discussed operating, but really when it came to the budget, there really wasn't a lot of discussion because apparently there is no budget set yet. We talked, Mrs. Doherty and Mr. Nazer reviewed proposed projects and equipment that currently have placeholders in the 26-27 budget. The items included for consideration are focused on safety and security. The 26-27 budget does not currently include any allocation for major repairs, replacements of the high school south turf field. Facilities use champions are new before and after care program wants to run a summer program in 2026. Mrs. Doherty is working through the arrangements with them, and I know when they came on board, that was something that our parents were very interested in, so they're working out the cost and the benefits for us. There also was a group called Backyard Sports League. Mrs. Doherty reviewed 2 facility use requests for summer programs. The district will be working with representatives from Champions on their proposal for running a summer program at New Monmouth Elementary School, which will include a revenue share for the district. The district needs more information on the proposal from Backyard Sports. league before we have any further consideration. Sub-custodian rates, we talked about that. It's really hard to get substitute custodians. So we're looking into raising the minimum wage for them. I think we're looking at $18 an hour, and that probably will be on next week's agenda if the board gives a consensus on that. Oh, sorry, they're starting at $16.50. It changed since our meeting, sorry. I didn't know that. The Monmouth County Historical Commission Preservations Award Program, they're going to submit the annex in Lincroft, and hopefully they'll get an award. Unfortunately, there's no money involved in that. It's an award. The draft of Master Plan Facilities Assessment and Budget are the next steps. I did ask prior to that meeting if we could have a presentation on the long-range facilities plan, but that's not happening. I did explain the reason why I wanted it was because we are doing strategic planning and we are coming up with a new long-range facility plan, and it would be good for us and the public to know what was in the last one and see where we are, where we're going, and I'm hoping that we can have that in the future. And that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Maniwis. Finance, that would be me. So, there's no items on the agenda for voting this month, on the January voting meeting agenda.
Actually, Mr.
That's
Avita,
February, I'm sorry.
we are going to have a transportation item that we just opened the bid yesterday. So
Okay.
that will be on the agenda. It's for athletic transportation. That's the only thing we
Stand
have.
corrected, we'll have a transportation
Yes,
item.
things are always developing.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, thank you. So the board, the committee discussed the 26-27 budget overview. Ms. Doherty had provided the entire board with a memorandum on February 5th, which was a budget update. So that was the main discussion that we had with the committee. And it centered around the need to come to a consensus regarding the direction for addressing this year's $3.2 million shortfall between projected revenues and expenses for the 26-27 school year budget. The 26-27 tentative budget cannot be finished until it's determined whether the district and the board will be planning school closures or consolidations for 26-27 or for 27-28. And obviously, this decision will impact the management of the 25-26 budget for the remainder of the year. More importantly, unless the district can reduce its operating expenses with changes that will have an impact in future years going forward, the budget will continue to be in a structural deficit going forward. Based on the business office's projections, and this is just maintaining status quo at state mandated 2% tax levy increases each year, and state aid stable, being stable or even with minimal increases, the district can expect to see budget deficits of $6.6 million in 27-28, $10.2 million in 28-29, and $13.9 million in 29-30. That's if we just maintain the status quo, don't do anything moving forward. The 25-26 increase in the tax levy that was passed last year, that allowed the district to have more time to formulate and to vet, prepare a plan for reducing operating expenses going forward. It was also necessary to give the district the ability to put funds in our reserves, which were depleted. So it helped kind of stabilize us for this year, but we're still facing a deficit just for the next budget cycle of $3.2 million. The district's infrastructure, as we all know, is aging. And until we have a large-scale capital plan and funding that's in place, there will be increased maintenance costs to just keep the facilities operating. Right now, and Ms. Menounos may have touched on this, right now, what we're trying to do is just address the issues that are safety or security related until we can come up with a longer-term plan to address the funding. Even without considering the age of the facilities, the district has 17 campuses to maintain and must have the ability to address unanticipated issues and make improvements without relying solely on bond issues. You heard the presentation, the additional information presented by Mr. Haber regarding the facility and boundary analysis. And the board will continue to discuss, the finance and the budget going forward, knowing that, we have about a month to go before we have to approve our tentative budget. So I just want to say this, I understand, I've seen hundreds of emails as the board has, and I understand your passion, because you know what, I have children, and when, I have children, yes I do, and when it comes to your children, I understand and can understand how you feel. But we're in a position now where to maintain the status quo is not working. So I don't think any individual board member, and I've spoken to everybody on this board, they know my feelings and where I stand. Something has to be done. I'm not gonna sit here hand over heart and say that I have the plan, because I don't. The administration, they'll develop the plan, and the board will vote on it, whatever it's going to be. But if we do nothing, we're failing our kids. We are.
You are failing.
Okay, well, so what, all right, but it's the board's responsibility, because we have to vote on the recommendation. The public doesn't get a vote, except November. We vote in November, that's right. Right, and my platform was very clear. We need a plan that has long, sustainable financial path that's gonna put us on sound financial footing. We don't have it right now. So every year, as you know, the conversation is dominated by the budget discussion, where we're gonna find the money. But nothing's ever done. We kick the can down the road and say, we'll deal with it next year. Well, the can is disintegrated and we're at the end of the road. So we need to do something. And again, it's up to the entire board, not one person, two people, the entire board, to come to some kind of agreement, what we can all agree on, based on the recommendation of the superintendent and the administration, and try to move this forward. And with that, legislator.
I have some questions, please.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, because I wasn't there, so I'm just trying to also fill in the gaps in terms of what was discussed. So there was no discussion at all, and I'm not talking about the larger plan. I'm not saying that doesn't have to be discussed, so please don't twist my words. But there was no discussion at all in the interim of trying to dwindle down the $3.2 million deficit. There was no discussion from either the superintendent or the business administrator in terms of directions that were given perhaps to department heads to figure out how to shrink some of that? None of that was discussed?
No, absolutely not. That's not true at all.
So what was discussed? Because
We have spoken to every department and met with them individually to determine what are things that we could potentially scale back. For instance, in curriculum, you can look at cycles of textbook renewals that might be up for adoption. You could look at holding off on certain curriculum rewrites. We're looking to cut our expenses with our digital tools that we use. So all of those things are definitely conversations we've had, but there has been no decision made on where we're gonna trim that. But those are nickel and dime things. Those aren't gonna make up $3.2 million, not even close. The way you make up big money is through staffing, through salaries and benefits. I hate to say it, it's what it is, because it's the biggest piece of the budget. So unless you can shrink your operating costs through those mechanisms, you're not gonna make up $3 million, $6 million, $9 million and be able to sustain that. So yes, we have discussed with every department, but we're kind of in limbo until we have a determination from the board as to the direction we're going to start to reduce those operating expenses as well.
And Ms. Wright, to your point, I will say that in discussions with board members, there have been ideas whatever they were about doing it, and they were good ideas, but they, like, to Dr. Alphone's point, they were of minimal consequence when you're talking about the projected budget,
Sure,
deficits that we're
and
gonna
I
be
said that at the
seeing.
top, I'm not talking
So,
about the
no,
larger
I get
discussion,
it.
so I
I
don't
think
want.
you know, so I'm not happy we're in this position, I don't think anybody here is. We're not.
That's not my point, that's not
Okay.
my point at all. My point is in that the 6 years that I've been on this board, when we've gotten close in terms of budgeting and when there have been problems, there was more of a collaboration and more of a discussion ongoing about where we were going to trim to try and actually meet the budget that we had to actually then have, right? There has been none of that, and all I know is that for the past 10 months, again, like I said before, as we waited for this report from Heber, I would have thought that there would have been more of a discussion amongst the administration and the board, even if you wanted to invite, representatives from the public to come in and maybe even use our own administrators who are very intelligent and knowledgeable about what goes on in this district to even come up with more ideas about a long-range plan that we could then have an on-ramp of maybe a year or two to get the community ready. And none of that happened. We all sat around and none of that happened. And it's wrong. And I think, and I'm sorry, you know what, you can say what you want about me, it needs to be said out loud again. Because it's a complete failure in terms of the time that we had. And again, I'm not sitting up here saying that at some point, the footprint of this district that I was born and raised in, my parents went to the schools through here, may have to change so that it sustains itself for the next 50 to 60, 100 years. But not again to have to do it within 2 months. So my question again, because I asked this in November and I asked it in December, and we were told by the business administrator in December that they were starting to talk about the budget. Clearly it was known that we were heading to a $3.2 million deficit. In the real world, the leader of whatever organization and whatever CFO, whatever title you want to give the person in charge of the finances, would have started to work to figure out how to, in the interim, close that gap. That doesn't then say you don't look at what the projection needs to be. Of course you have to do that. But again, there's been no discussion, and now we're like being held hostage about this $3.2 million deficit unless we suddenly figure out what Haber report proposal we're gonna go with. That's not how the real world works.
And we're not saying that there has to be a decision on a school closure this year immediately. And I'm gonna tell you right now, we've analyzed this budget line for line. And I said it last year, I'll say it again.
Right here in the sentence of this report.
There is nothing that you are starting to dwindle down the quality of the education that we give to our students if you have to make up $3.2 million by looking at the line items in the budget.
And we are going to dwindle down.
I don't disagree.
education.
I am not an advocate for 27 kids in a classroom at all.
All right, wait, folks, please, I asked to hold the comments. We'll get to the public comments.
Are you done, Deb?
So I think the other thing that I want to raise too is, and I've said this before and several other board members have said this before, is that on June 30th, it's my understanding that the contract with the school safety officers is going to expire. Is that right? And that's $1.2 million, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I don't remember the exact day of the email that I sent it. I think it was March 31st of last year. I sent an email to the entire board, and I have the administration on here, right? Because a couple of us had gone in and met with you, Dr. Alphone, we met with Mrs. Doherty, trying to figure out what other savings we could come up with for that particular year, again, to close just that year's budget gap. And I think at the end of that meeting or somewhere along those lines, we identified $6 million in savings.
Correct.
But the other thing that I had said the next day, right, and again, it's right here in an email on March 31st, anybody can see it if they want to see it. And before my words again get twisted about not, being concerned about the safety of students, I am. I also have a child in this district. I'm concerned about my child's safety. But I said back then, I don't understand why we weren't going to the township even before that to ask why we weren't be able to basically share that contract. And then things happened and things happened fine. But then there was just a reluctance to go back to the township and again talk to them about this being a true shared service. Because it's also my understanding there is no district in New Jersey that is taking that cost on completely themselves. We can't afford it anymore. And that's really sad because the safety of our students should be paramount.
Yes.
But now that's $1.2 million that we don't have. So is there going to be a conversation with the township about sharing it?
Someone should answer that.
We do have shared services.
When we get to shared service, we were going to announce there's a shared service meeting scheduled for when is it?
The 26th.
Next week.
For next week.
Yeah.
We don't, the board doesn't set those meetings, they're done through the township administrator and the business office. I wasn't on the board last year, with all due respect. Can you, when it's time for public comment, you could ask your questions.
I appreciate you trying to have this forum, but when you present information this way to the public, it kind of backfires.
What backfires? I'm stating facts that were given to me in a committee meeting.
It's okay, I wouldn't expect you to understand.
Okay.
And just, I have a question. I mean, you keep going back to inefficiencies with all the elementary schools. Have we looked at inefficiencies with the middle and high schools and a lot of duplication and things that go on there?
Yeah, we analyzed all the staffing and all
We
the
were funding
services.
2 high schools. You know,
So are you suggesting we should consolidate into
yeah,
one high school?
have one high school.
Okay, you can put a proposal out there. Oh my gosh.
I do have something to say. In the past, during budget process, the board has had discussions, and we did it last year, Dr. Alphone, when
Absolutely.
leadership didn't want to, you invited us.
Absolutely.
We went, we had discussions, we came up with $6 million worth of cuts. We're not discussing that this year. I did bring something up in facility and finance about us looking for it. And I know that some of the areas that I would like to see cut, you do not agree with. But we should be cutting everything possible that doesn't affect the classroom if we need to make up that money. And that starts at the top. And it goes down. And we are not having those discussions because that is not an interest. But we should be before we're taking kids out of their buildings and moving on, so that we can form a plan that's gonna go forward.
It's not that there's not an interest in doing that, in having that process. We are waiting for a recommendation from the board as to what we're doing with the larger budget picture, because no matter how, even if we cut at the top and move down, you're not gonna make up that money. But it's a start, but it's gonna chip away only a small bit at that.
We came up with $6 million last
Right,
year.
but eventually
And
you
we
run
did-
out of things to cut.
We didn't touch the top.
Yes,
And, no,
We did. We
took
cut
two
administrators.
We took 2 assistant principals, that's it. We need-
That's a hefty amount, and I have done this data. There is a lot of ground to cover in just observations alone, and the amount of manpower it takes to be in compliance with a district of this size is large. I am not wrong. I am not wrong. Because everyone else knows better.
I'm just saying, my point of view is that our kids are our top priority here. It should be they are put first. We are disrupting the whole north side of town, actually, and now we're talking about disrupting River Plaza.
You're gonna have to disrupt something here in order for things to
But
change.
you've done the whole thing. We've done the whole thing, and we've had years to discuss that.
We've
And
had
it got
10 years
thrown
to
on
do
last
this,
year.
and now, as Chris said, the can is disintegrating.
We need to start looking at cutting things that are not going to affect the classroom and not going to affect our kids until we can get on a plan that is going to help us district-wide.
What do you want to cut?
And if anybody, I was just gonna say, if anybody has a list, please share it.
What was brought up in finance?
I think we need to start at the top with administration. When you guys ran your campaign this year, it was about the 4% raise that our administrators got. Everybody in town was talking about, oh, we're administrative heavy. Okay, let's look at that. The community wants us to look at that. We should be looking at that. And I'm sure there's many other things that are in this budget that are not going to affect our kids' classrooms.
Well, I'm just asking,
that.
what was talked about in finance? I wasn't in
I
finance.
brought up administration, supervisors, whatever.
Yeah, and I said, if you give us a
Yeah.
list of who you wanna cut on the administration, but that's not your that's not your recommendation to make
Bill,
about cutting administrators.
No, but it's a suggestion that we all had part of last year and every other year. This is nothing new. Everybody's saying it's not our decision, and it's not. But we've had many meetings over the years with suggestions and areas to look at. If you want me to go on about personnel in public, I will, but,
You can't do that.
you know, we can't do that. But you know what, this board is operating on an email basis. We never talk as a board. We never do.
We're talking now.
Yeah, we're talking now, and we're limited to things that we can talk about. Everything is done by email. Oh, you know what, if you have a suggestion, email me. But I don't know what everybody else is emailing. Maybe I'll agree with their suggestions, maybe I won't. We're in a bubble here.
I know, Joan.
And we got a big
Joan, you've been on the
situation
board
to
for
fix.
many years. You know that it's Open Public Meetings Act. There's certain things that.
But Chris, I get that, but we never have an opportunity to speak anymore. Never. We had to do it in small groups last year.
And you.
But we did it, and it's the same thing I'm asking for, suggestions. She didn't have to take our suggestions last year, but she encouraged us to come and meet with her and tell her what we thought. That's what I'm saying. I'm not looking to break ethics and tell her what she has to do, but I'm willing to tell you what the community and myself feels and where we should be looking. I want to put our kids first, and I want to make sure they get everything they need. And by doing this the way we're doing this, we're right back where we were last year because we didn't discuss it. We asked Dr. Alphone about plans, and she said that leadership wasn't interested in meeting about it. So what are we supposed to do as a board? What do we do?
I
We're
can
right
only
here
look
where
at the
we're
numbers now.
nowhere.
And there was a presentation last month by Ms. Doherty. You know, we burned through $19 million in non-recurring revenue items that we don't have anymore. And that was in addition to the tax levy increases for those 5 years. So if you average it out, that's about $8 million a year.
And that was
Just
all
there.
in one-time
And then we raised, wait,
expenditures.
and then the board raised taxes last year, 16 million. So we're still in the hole. There's a structural.
And nobody got
deficit.
anything for it. Not one child benefited from
Right.
it.
Oh, that's not true,
What did
Jackie.
we do? What did we do? What did we do
That's
for
not
16
true. We
million?
still have programs in place. We didn't touch the kids' programs at all.
We didn't add
And
anything, I'm
everybody-
saying. We
let me-
didn't add anything for
let me-
$16
no, we
million.
didn't. But
We
the
did
year
not
bef-
add one thing for $16 million.
But the year
And
before,
we're still in a hole.
we
Keep it
kept,
civil, please.
we're in a
Keep
hole
it civil.
$3
And
million,
this board-
which is
and
what
this
we're
board-
in every
And
single
this
year.
board
said
willingly
no.
sat on their hands for 11
This board
months.
Wait,
literally
can we
said
have one
no.
person at a time?
Well, I was speaking until Deb
Yes,
interrupted. This
please.
board literally said no to sharing the services of the police in the schools. Literally, this board said no to that.
And why, Jackie?
And why?
I have no idea. I have
You
no
do
idea
know
why you all said no.
Because
I
the
have no
county
idea.
commissioner turned our budget down, and that 5.88 wasn't gonna help us at all.
That has nothing to do with why you didn't, has nothing to do with saying no to the shared service. Has nothing to do with it.
Yes,
That
it
is a
did.
blatant lie.
It was
It's a
a
blatant
package
lie.
deal.
It's a blatant lie.
It was a package
Joan,
deal.
it's a
Okay,
blatant
all
lie.
right, all right.
Jackie?
All right.
You know what, Jackie? You guys met with shared services and didn't even include us until we went to the press conference, and I was all for it until the county
Every
commissioner
single person was
turned it
called and
down.
told. And every single
We were
person on
told
this
the
board
morning of.
sat in, no, that's not true.
That is true.
Every single person was called after that
We
shared
were-
service
We
meeting.
were called.
Every single
No.
person was called
That's a
on this
lie.
board after that shared service
You're
meeting.
lying. We
Oh,
were
I'm not
called-
lying.
we
I
were
am not
called
lying.
and
I
told
sat there
to
and I
be-
made phone calls and so did Frank.
Jackie, we were called and
You
told.
guys,
we
all you want to do, Joan, is pander to this
No,
audience.
That's enough.
we were
That's
called.
enough.
No, I'm
All right, one
finishing.
person at a time.
We were
One
called.
person at a time.
We were called and told to come to town hall at 7:30. I was excited. We were told at 7:30 in the morning what the plan was, Jackie. You might have called us and said, "Can you be there?" That's all we were told. We were not told the plan. And I'm not a liar because there's other board members that were the same way. You
Every
always
single
try to
one of
make
you got
us
a phone
look
call.
out bad. And for that 16 million that made us whole, we're not completely in the thing, but it got us through, and it made up for things that we would have had to cut on top of the
Didn't
6
get a lot of
million.
members of this community through that $16 million tax increase.
Well, you know what? I stand by what I say, and I'm not a liar. You want to prove me a liar? Go right ahead. I've had enough of it, Jackie. You don't even communicate with us.
I'm not board leadership, Joan.
Either.
I'm not board leadership, I'm not on any committees with you. We have no reason to communicate.
You haven't.
You're on a board together, that's why you communicate.
All right, this isn't gonna solve anything, it's really not. It's not.
Here, she
We
lies.
have no leadership.
Lies.
It is, it's on.
None.
20 years of your leadership, lies.
Yeah. At least I don't make meetings.
Negotiations, it was great, we already had it, we already discussed.
Remember 3131.
Personnel, policy, Ms. Tobacco?
Student
No
services.
meeting.
Student services.
Student services, Ms. Torres is not here, can somebody get that report?
Yes, Mrs. Torres is not feeling well, so she's not here, so I'll sit in for her to give the student services. We also met last night, and the first thing we talked about was the Development Disabilities Week that is going to be coming up on March 23rd through the 27th. In speaking with Mrs. Granger, we are really revamping how we're going to do Development Disabilities Week. I think we are still going to be doing like the spirit wear that's going to be happening every single day throughout the week, but then also trying to get more of the community involved and also really talk about disabilities within the school and really, stress, I think, more inclusion. And so some of the other ideas that Mrs. Granger had was to have specific read-alouds. I think she has an entire list of certain books based on the elementary, middle, and high school levels that I think teachers are going to be reading aloud, and then perhaps asking maybe community members to come in and also read alouds to the class as well, which really celebrate both the differences of all the different children, and then also strengthening and really promoting inclusion. And then I believe, if I remember correctly, in the different high schools, there's also going to be poster contests, I believe.
Yes, poster
That's what she had
contests
talked about, right?
And then essay contest.
Right, and getting the students more involved at the high school level as well. So really looking forward to something different within the district this year. Last Thursday night was the Unified Basketball and Cheer basketball game that was held at High School South. I will say that I didn't get to actually see the game, but I was going into High School South for the negotiations. The parking lot was packed, and as soon as I walked in the door, all I heard was a lot of enthusiastic cheering. I heard the pep band. It sounded like they were having an amazing time. And hearing from Mrs. Granger and those that were able to make it last Thursday, the reports were absolutely glowing. The students had an amazing time. I think the students that were there also, being mentors to the children as well, really loved it. It just seemed like everybody was really excited. And Mrs. Granger is, really trying very hard. I know, unfortunately, the weather did not work in our favor last June to be able to do a unified kickball game, but she is really looking forward to being able to make that happen for the district this year. And I believe we already know that we will be playing brick. So hopefully we'll have a date to give to all of you soon. The other good news that we found out is the High School South Brew Crew is back. They had their grand reopening on Friday, February 13th, and they were providing coffee and breakfast treats, to the entire school community. So this was really great. Obviously, this is an extremely important program to our students because it's a really great learning experience for them, in terms of vocational skills, bolstering their confidence, and just really, I think, being able to spread positivity throughout the school. I believe that we have a new, this was a new publication to the teachers, is that right,
Yes.
Mr. Cullen? Do you want to do that one? I just want to make sure that I described this one correctly.
Yes, our special ed supervisors have created an ICC newsletter that they share with the teachers just to give them some technology ideas, some instructional strategies just to keep supporting our students with specialized instruction.
Great. And my other really favorite one, this is now a couple months now going, and I really love to see this, is that we had absolutely no current special education litigation to discuss. So I think that's a really great and positive thing for the district. And I believe that we also are going to be the recipients of a monetary donation for New Monmouth Elementary School from one of the families in our district, which their child is, enrolled there, really excited and very thankful for the progress that their child has been making. And so it sounds like there's discussions now to have a donation to New Monmouth from that family.
Yes, that's actually going to be on the agenda.
Oh, it will be on the agenda?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Joan and I went to the unified basketball game, and I just want to say that that was one of the coolest. It was so much fun to watch.
It sounded amazing.
I said it was like watching the Harlem Globetrotters. They were doing trick shots. And
They were so proud of themselves. It was really great. One kid really did. He made the three-pointer from almost the other end of the court. We were all like, whoa. It was really good.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Technology, Ms. Weinstein?
The technology, excuse my voice, I'm sorry. The technology committee met last week as well. First and foremost, we don't have any voting agenda items for February. We did have a couple of quick updates though. So in High School North, they did roll out the classroom turnstiles. The kiosks have been installed in every classroom at High School North. Basically, the idea here is to help track student movement outside of the classroom. So they sign out of the classroom when leaving during class times. They're going to use the restroom and then sign back in when they return. And then this way, the student location can be viewed in real time in Genesis. It's just helping with tracking with time out of class. There was also a phishing simulation campaign that was run. The new Smart Phishing Simulation campaign runs all year long, and it refreshes every month with randomized emails being sent out to keep users vigilant. So rather than just sending one phishing email where people could discuss it and then everybody on the staff would be aware of what type of phishing email was sent out, this is changing different types so that the staff is more aware of the different types of phishing emails they might receive and are more able to avoid them. And then last but not least, the district data center UPS replacement. Excuse me. The district replaced the batteries for the 24 kW UPS that powers the district data center in the event of a power outage. The latest annual maintenance reported that the current batteries could not hold a sufficient charge. So they ensured that those were replaced. The UPS is also responsible for conditioning street electricity to remove fluctuations before it enters the data center. So we are all set there and good to go with that power backup. And that's it for technology.
Thank you, Ms. Weinstein. Shared services report, we have a meeting 25th. 26th?
It's the 26th.
26th, it's next Thursday. And we'll report on it, out on that end. Food Service Committee, I did see a report. Somebody
I'll
want to-
take it. I'll take it, yes.
Okay.
So on February 3rd, the Food Service Committee met. Mrs. Doherty went over the role of the Food Service Management Company. The district engages in the Food Service Management Company to manage the food service program for the district. The district operates the program, it collects the revenue, pays the expenses, and pays a management fee to the company for its services. The district owns all equipment and is responsible for the space in which the program operates. Then we also spoke about offerings by level, elementary, middle, and high school. Then we also went into compliance requirements. The committee discussed the requirements that the district must comply with as a participant in the National School Lunch Program. The committee also discussed the current level of participation across the district, which is approximately 27%. The district has also been working with the Food Service Management Company and its consultant to find ways to increase participation. We also discussed about getting the word out there about free and reduced meals for the certain families, giving out advanced notification at the end of the school year, during the school year, and also at the beginning of the school year, make sure that everyone receives lunch. But no one is ever turned away. Then we also addressed some questions and concerns about topics that are served and items. And then we also spoke about account restrictions for students. The committee also discussed the possibilities of partnering with more local providers. Then we also further went into food service program financials. We discussed review of the food service fund, which is a separate fund from the general budget and is required to be self-sustaining. The food service program is an approximately $3 million operation that is funded by federal and state reimbursement sales. Then we also spoke about outstanding student meal balances and policy regulation. Outstanding student meal balances are covered under policy 3542.2. Whitston's and administrative team are working on ways to make parents more aware of their student balances. We recently heard back from Whitston's, and rolling out next year, they are going to put out a new beef burger, which is a lot more healthier, and the texture. The funds to this product for next year, we're waiting on clarification, and if they can get the funds transferred this year, the price difference is about 3 cents per burger. The fat content on all beef is no more than 20%. We're also going to be using a new beef taco for elementary and middle schools, with cleaner products, no soy, and no other allergens. This new product can also use the commodity funds. They're also going to look into getting a better brand of chicken for the students. Whitston's is speaking with Cisco and their current supply chain department. The amount of saturated fat in the chicken filet white meat is 1.5. Chicken tenders is 2.5 saturated fat. Chicken nuggets, white meat 2.5, and boneless chicken wings, white meat 1.5. We're also looking into getting nitrate-free hot dogs and bacon, with correct pricing information, and looking for other alternatives other than Tyson. And also, Whitston's rolled out a homemade applesauce, and it was a huge hit at Middletown Village Elementary kids. They absolutely loved it. And that's it.
Excellent.
The other thing I just wanted to add, and we had talked about this in committee, and we had a few years ago a district wellness committee, and with the pandemic and everything that disrupted schools, that kind of got put on pause. But we want to go back and get that restarted. I know a member of the community reached out to Mrs. Weinstein, and she forwarded it to me. So I talked to Mrs. Weinstein about we were going to get that initiative restarted again, which would start with a core group of organizers, which would be some members of administration, a couple of board members, and get it organized. And then we would talk about how we're going to roll this out across the district. But we're going to be moving forward on that in the next few months. So.
Can you just outline the best next steps to get that going, as far as getting community volunteers and board member volunteers?
Well, I think that was what we were going to decide. The core committee was going to figure out how they were going to go about that process. So, after we meet, we can then, work on the next steps. I think that would be the first thing I would do, is get the organizational meeting together and make a plan to get this moving.
Okay.
So.
All right, I'll connect with you on that. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. West. Calendar committee?
The calendar committee met on February 3rd to vet out what the proposed school calendar for the 26-27 school year would look like. Labor Day is extremely late this year, so we will be bringing students back before Labor Day, as you will see on the proposed calendar. Another couple of highlights, and again, this is all determined by committee, is the reinstatement of the November break. So we won't have that chopped up week for next year. It will be a full 5 days consecutive break. The committee felt that it was not ideal, given the election day is there, and we are polling locations. And as much as we'd love to not have that be a factor, it is, and it's something that we have to contend with every year. You'll see this year's calendar's proposal also only has one emergency day built in versus 2 that we had this year, although We may, in fact, who knows what's going to happen with this weather coming this weekend, but there will only be one weather day built in for next school year. And really, those are the highlights. Again, students must have 180 school days. That's by state mandate. So, the only two major changes were the earlier start before Labor Day and then the November break being reinstated. Everything else is pretty much status quo.
Did we get to discuss at that meeting what day we're going to take away for the snow day?
It was proposed that it would be May 28th, the one before the Memorial Day weekend. That would be the one.
Thank you, Doctor. We reviewed a draft voting agenda. Any old business? Any new business?
I have some new business. I received an email about a student at High School South. Future Medical Professionals of America is the name of the group. And Drew Thompson organized a successful blood drive. They collected 32 units of blood, which may have helped to save the lives of up to 96 patients. Congratulations to Drew and everyone who took part in this group. It's a new group, and they're really, the kids are really excited about being a part of it. I think it was good. And I'm sure maybe we'll hear about it next week. But being I got the email, I thought I would put it in. I also want to update the community on our school plays that are coming up. You don't want to miss them. Our kids are fantastic. Make sure you get out there. There's a whole bunch in a row, so it'll probably keep you busy for a few nights. The only play I didn't get information on was Thompson. But I have the Thorn play is The Descendants, and it's from March 14th to the 18th. They even have a Saturday afternoon performance. Bayshore is April 30th and May 1st, Grease Jr. North play, Once Upon a Mattress, is March 13th, 14th at 7, and on the 14th they have a 1 p.m. and a 7 show. South play is Guys and Dolls, March 12th, 13th, and 14th at 7. I think that's all the plays. And then there's also a PTA fundraiser for anyone in the community that's interested in getting their students' portraits taken. It'll be held at the Navasink Library on March 14th, and any information you need can go through the Navasink PTA. So that's the upcoming for the student performances. I hope everyone gets to attend.
Thank you, Ms. Moon. Anybody else for new business? Okay, this time I'd like to open up the mic, public portion, for 30 minutes. Just please keep in mind we have a lot of people, so we'd like to keep it to 3 minutes. And Mr. Burns, the board attorney, will be timing it here, so when you're coming up on your 3 minutes, we'll let you know. Thank you.
My name is Katie Littlepage. I live in Middletown. I have a child enrolled in our district and a younger child as well. I attend Board of Education meetings to be proactive in my children's educational experience. At the last Board of Education meeting on January 27th, during public comment, I asked Board President Chris Aveda a question about policy and procedure. He and the board's attorney, William Burns, attempted to respond, but their response did not answer my question, so I rephrased my question and asked again. It became apparent that Mr. Burns and Mr. Aveda were frustrated that I was asking them to answer with a yes or no. While I was standing at the podium with 15 minutes remaining in the public's comment time, Mr. Aveda interrupted me and said, "Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?" Board member Jacqueline Tobacco quickly seconded the motion, and board members Frank Capone, Katerina Skolaski, and Sarah Weinstein voted with them to pass the motion. Notably, board members Joan Minuis, Mark Soporowski, Deborah Wright, and Aaron Torres voted against the motion to prematurely end the meeting during public comment. Middletown Township Policy 112.5 Civility states, quote, "It is the intent of the board to promote mutual respect, civility, and orderly conduct among board members, district employees, parents, students, and the public. It is not the intent of the board to deprive any person of his or her right of freedom of expression." Mr. Aveda, you have previously served on this board. Mr. Capone and Ms. Tobacco, Ms. Delaski, you have been serving on this board for years, and Ms. Weinstein, this is your second candidacy for this board. Your experience implies that you are aware of this policy and therefore knowingly chose to violate it. By doing so, you did a profound disservice to the Middletown residents and parents in that room and to their children. Serving on this board is an unpaid volunteer position. Because you are not being financially compensated, one could infer that you accepted this position because you have a passion for children's public education. It therefore does not make sense that you would motion to silence a student's mother and other members of the public with 15 minutes remaining in the public's comment time. If you are not interested in hearing from the public, why are you serving on a public board of education? If you did not accept this position to put Middletown's children first, please reconsider completing your term on this board. My hope, however, is that from this point forward, you will abide by your policy and be collaborative with the parents and residents who make the effort to speak at these meetings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kristen Rooney, Middletown, New Jersey. Given the state of the budget last year, and we've been through this before, sounds like we're about to go through it again. I just have a few specific questions about what has been done in committees and by the administration to ensure that we bring in more revenue and that we bring down costs so that we can get to a healthy financial future. Specifically, has anyone explored bringing in before or after care or looked at other districts that do that, running it in-house? Because that's, other districts do it and it's very lucrative, and I feel like it's been raised here before. Has that been brought up at any point? I can follow up with email.
It's a longer response. We haven't examined it.
Okay, I will send you these, but
I'm writing them.
thank you. Have you investigated pre-K, expanding the pre-K program? Can we get more grant money if we expand it? Because that's another
We have.
hot topic.
There are a lot of challenges with that.
Okay,
Because there are restrictions in getting the state's money and certain things you have to do.
okay,
So
thank you.
we have that.
Have you tried to seek out more revenue to pay for the scoreboards? Because it looks like we've now covered maybe 1% of the, I guess, approximately $900,000 that was spent. I don't know if we've have any more advertisers since we last spoke.
We can provide an update.
Okay, I mean, we have the bills, so we're trying to go by that, and it doesn't look like it, but if I'm wrong, I'd love to be wrong. Have you, I think you covered this earlier, and you're having a shared services meeting, but we know that the shared services, the police, are costing us $1.3 million a year, and that last year we talked about at least splitting it. I do think that when it initially happened, the mayor mentioned paying for it all, so I don't know. I feel like if we need the money and we're trying to not hurt our kids and keep them safe, that the mayor would definitely want to listen to that because he's a good guy and has his own kids. Have you looked into more opportunities to rent out school facilities, stages, fields? Is that something that we're pursuing? And I know that we've said like some of these things are nickel and dime things, but you know, to make a healthy budget, you nickel and dime. You don't slash and burn and amputate. Given that I believe, but correct me if I'm wrong, you now have the approval to sell land that's owned by the Board of Education. And I believe that we own approximately a dozen properties, and that was something that was on the table last year, was the sale of a piece of property. But those properties were not appraised. Have the properties been appraised? And is that something that's being considered? Because there's a lot of property that's worth a good amount of money.
We have appraisals and permission from the state to sell some of those properties.
Okay, and is that something that's considered in your budget planning process?
Well, it's something that is up for discussion, knowing that we have the ability to sell them.
Okay.
There haven't been any active conversations internally, administratively, yes, but you know, that's where it has sat right now.
Okay, but there's approval to
Correct.
sell, and there are appraisals.
Correct.
Okay, that's good.
That's 3 minutes. Will you please wrap?
Okay, I have one more. Just looking at what's in the news, the Homedale Board of Education, recently, they're trying to broker a deal with their township to get a portion of their pilot program tax revenue. And I know that we have a lot of new building going on, and there's a lot of pilots that are being offered to builders. So I am curious if, I would think this is, I don't know who would do this and what committee, if this is something that you would consider. And I'm sure you could speak to the Homedale Board of Education to see how they're going about it, but they're looking for 30% of the pilots from builders because builders putting kids in schools should fund schools.
Amen.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ashley Studd. I'm a resident of Milltown. I want to clear up a few confusions. Number one, shared services meetings can be requested by the board, does not need to be by the town. The fact that we haven't had a meeting in a year is pretty sad. Number two, it's not the board's job to come up with strategies for the budget. So can we stop saying that? It's what we pay you guys to do. I think a lot of us in here are completely miffed because at least 3 meetings I can recall in the last 6 months, we've heard we're in good shape financially. Our budget's looking a lot better. You know, we don't need to worry about this. We keep asking, hey, when are we gonna start these financial decisions so we're not blindsided like last year? It feels like we learned nothing. While school closings were being discussed behind closed doors last February, reckless spending continued, including a scoreboard for the football field that has been spent $900,000 this year. So the fact that we can't nickel and dime our way out of stuff is wrong. We have sold $10,000 in ads for this so-called investment that was going to pay for itself. That's 1%. You guys, I can't help but feel like there are other motivations behind this. This blindsiding, it's got to stop. I'm sorry that you have contributions from people that want to invest in construction, but that's not our town's problem. We need to start making better decisions. This doesn't feel like it was well planned out. It doesn't feel like all options were considered. And what have you done to learn from last year? You kept communicating community schools also. We know that 2 weeks ago you emailed Haber to tell him to do another one with closed schools. So the fact that this is news to the board also is very concerning. This just does not feel like anything's well communicated. It's starting to feel like a lot of things are not being transparent. That's not true. And it's really hurtful to the people that have trusted you, that you said made all these promises. We're gonna prioritize community schools. We're gonna do better. We're gonna start the financial discussion earlier. And here we are in February, maybe 2 weeks before where we were last year. That's it, thank you.
Hi, Heather Clover at Middletown. So, a couple things. Just at the last meeting, Dr. Alcone, one, you said we're not in the same financial position.
Correct, we're not. We're not 19 million in the hole.
Okay, correct. You know when you said that, the implications were made that some of these things were off the table.
I never said that school closings were off the table.
No, you never said the words even apply.
I said we believe in community schools, and listen, if we could keep them all open, it would be great. But that's just not the reality. That's not how you shrink operating costs. So please don't put words in my mouth.
The presentation that was brand new to you, again,
Which presentation that was brand new to me?
at the last meeting.
Yeah.
You gave a presentation.
Yeah, it was brand new to us.
Okay, that's interesting because your emails say otherwise. Haber himself said otherwise.
We had
There have been
preliminary,
several
we didn't see a
iterations
final
of this.
version till days before. We didn't see the information from him we saw drafts, of course.
Okay, so you saw other things that probably didn't present the case that you wanted, so you kept going at it and having him review it.
No, we didn't. We didn't see any iterations until
That's not what that man said, so is he the liar or are you the liar?
iteration. He did all those iterations. He did not share those iterations with us.
Well, that's not what he said. Everything's on.
Well,
film.
he
And you also
misspoke
got
then.
the emails where.
Please stop accusing, because he misspoke.
Okay, so he's the liar. Okay, so what I want to say to the board now is because we're talking about this again, closing these middle schools. We sat for 11 months waiting for this Haber report to tell us about school usage, were our schools at capacity. All he addressed was the elementary schools. There are hundreds of kids in these middle schools that we're not talking about. Human beings' lives. We had this discussion last year. No one is saying anything about them. They matter. They matter as much as the elementary schools. All these kids matter. I want you to tell me how many kids are going to be in each class when you shove Bayshore into Thorne and Thompson.
There was actually going to be 17 staff we were going to be able to repurpose last year to lower class sizes at the middle schools, but we never got that far in the conversation. So we were considering lowering class sizes because I do believe that 27 and 28 kids is too many. But without any wiggle room and without having people that are willing to listen openly and get to those next steps, we can never even have those conversations. Listen, we didn't know.
We're in a hole, 19 million, 3 million, but oh, I was going to add 17.
No, we weren't adding anything. We weren't adding anything. We were going to repurpose teachers through the Bayshore disbursement to the other two buildings to be able to lower class sizes, and that is a fact. But we never got to that point. You know, I'm really, really disheartened by the fact that people come up here and they speak, and we want to hear you, but you're accusatory, and you also don't work behind the scenes in a school. So it is really hard for you to make judgments on things without knowing the facts. I'm giving you a fact, but when I give you a fact, you say, I don't believe you.
That's 3 minutes, can you please finish up?
She spoke at me.
It's 3 minutes, that's
She
public
gets to
comment.
recoup the time that she was interrupted.
Okay, you can have another 30 seconds. 30 seconds, okay?
Oh, wow. How nice of you. Thank you, Dr. Alphone. Give me 30 seconds. Why? So you can just shrug it off? Okay, so board, please, before we vote on this, and we say, okay, we're okay with closing Bayshore and putting these children into Thorne and Thompson, get facts. Get facts that aren't coming from Dr. Alphone. If we spent 11 months waiting for this report that told us about elementary schools. Get an outside report. Tell us what's going to happen to these middle schools. Don't just vote blindly. Thank you for my 30 seconds.
Hi, good evening. My name is Aditi Shah, here, resident of Middletown. I think it's been made clearer than ever in today's meeting that there's like another rush to make a decision, but it's half-baked at best. I think there's a lot of incomplete information. I think there's a lot of miscommunication or non-communication, and I certainly hope that whatever decision is made will not be rushed for the sake of rush and be made soundly. With that said, my one specific comment is that if the board does vote to redistrict based on the version of the Haber report that was posted up until this week, that at the very, very least, that you allow the children who are already well established in their elementary schools to remain there. To yank out a third or fourth or fifth grader from their school where they have established a sense of community, established their sense of confidence and friendship, and in the case of, I'll speak on behalf of Wincroft, to move 4 third graders and 3 fourth graders only, I can hardly imagine that will benefit the district in any way, but it will be detrimental to these kids who have really, kind of earned their way to the 4th and 5th grade, and that's the situation we're in. So in that case, I believe that the harm to the kids will greatly outweigh any benefit to the district, and so if you were to pursue the redistricting, which again, I'm not in favor of, but if you go that route, I would ask that you at the very least grandfather the kids in who are already at their schools, and consider starting for the new incoming kids.
I second that. I think it has not got to be DNT and other programs that they don't want to be out of it. I agree to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jacqueline Etter. I'm a Middletown resident. I'm not very happy that I have to be here again tonight discussing the same thing that we've been discussing for the last year. I'll second what she said. I think the Ross Haber report that was presented talked about moving 120 students. That's if we change things tomorrow. There's no reason that a process like that couldn't be grandfathered in over time for not just new students, but new families. If we're thinking about truly a long-term plan, which was what the goal of this board was supposedly trying to accomplish, what we heard tonight and what was represented sounded like a scope that was very limited and directed by this board to support a foregone decision that you're trying to continue to shove down our throats. The Ross Haber talked repeatedly about 2 school closures, when in fact there was an obvious third of Bayshore Middle School. To ignore that entirely is disrespectful to all of us as an audience who have been spending our time showing up here, who didn't run to be on a board, but are just showing up because we care about our kids' future and education. And my kids aren't even in the school district yet. The Ross Haber report also said they based their findings off of births attributed to Middletown. Does anyone in this room have a kid who wasn't born in Middletown but is gonna enter a Middletown school? Because I know I do. So that data is incomplete. I know we didn't look at middle schools at all in the Ross Haber report, because why would we? It doesn't lend to the story you were trying to accomplish. But currently there are 1,963 middle school kids. That's not our projection. That's how many kids are in that, or in those 3 middle schools. If you divide that exactly by 2, you end up with 981 kids per school without any of your projections for growth over the next 5 years. So where does that put us in terms of the overcrowding? When you issued your MTPS survey in the fall, the #1 concern about school closures and redistricting was overcrowding, with 80% of respondents saying that that was their #1 concern. So where is the community in your plan? You're clearly not thinking of the students, you're clearly ignoring the community's feedback, and you're painting a picture with incomplete data to try and make us stomach everything. And you sit here and roll your eyes and laugh as we speak. And it's disrespectful. If you don't want to be here, leave. I have to be here because I'm interested in my kids' future.
Hi, I'm Heather Safford, and I'm a Middletown resident. And I'm here on behalf of Middletown Friends of Diverse Learners to express our concerns and to call on our community to work together to create a clear, viable, strategic plan and budget that supports all of our students. We know from experience when there is no plan, decisions often become reactive, resulting in service reductions and the redistricting of special education classes and students. We also know that thoughtful, collaborative planning leads to better outcomes. We are concerned that the Haber report did not provide an analysis of special education classes and related services location to ensure stability and consistent school pathways. It also assumed the status quo instead of the prior planned increase in inclusion. Despite both federal and state underfunding, our district has supported a higher than average classification rate, just over 20%. That means over 1 in 5 students receive special education services, in addition to many others that have 504 plans. These students are a significant and vital part of our community. We are grateful for the strong community support for our students and inclusion, yet we remain concerned. Some students' families have difficulty obtaining or maintaining an IEP that provides special ed. Some students are still inadequately supported or isolated. There is also a lack of clear communication and shared understanding about the challenges facing both special need families and the district. In the last 5-year strategic plan, inclusion was prioritized. Since then, the district has done important work, including several multi-year all-in grant initiatives and consultations. It's important to recognize the professional development efforts by our educators and progress that has been made to increase access to general education. However, following the grant period, reassessment showed that none of our schools were fully inclusive, and some continued to demonstrate low levels of inclusive practice. Questions remain regarding what systematic changes have occurred post-grants. More funding as well as structural and cultural change are needed. We need a forward-looking, transparent, strategic plan grounded in research and collaboration. Planning needs to ensure Title I funding. We need access to the updated master facility plan. We must be willing to have open and honest communication and conversations about what trade-offs are being made. We must plan to ensure that we're not continuing to marginalize or repeatedly redistrict our most vulnerable students. Our students deserve a system designed with intention, not by default. Thank you.
Thank you.
my name is Jody Truex, and I reside in Lincroft. I'm speaking this evening on behalf of the Middletown Friends of Diverse Learners and members of our special education community. I would like to speak about the meaningful inclusion of students who receive special education services within our general education classrooms. Inclusion defines not only our schools, but also our values as a community. Every child deserves an opportunity to be an active member of their school community and to access education alongside their peers. Education is about more than legal compliance. It's about dignity, opportunity, and belonging. Inclusive classrooms benefit all students, not only those that receive special education services. Students with disabilities gain access to grade-level curriculum, peer role models, and meaningful social interactions that help build confidence, independence, and communication skills. At the same time, inclusion enhances the educational experience of students without disabilities by fostering empathy, collaboration, respect for individual differences. Learning alongside peers of diverse abilities prepares students for real-world workplaces and communities. Effective inclusion requires thoughtful collaboration between general and special education staff, differentiated instruction, and appropriate supports and modifications. When implemented effectively, inclusion rises expectations for all learners and strengthens the school's culture by promoting strong peer relationships and a greater sense of belonging. However, many students still lack full access to full-day support within general education settings. At the elementary level, self-contained classes are often not aligned with their grade-level peers for specials and for lunch, limiting their opportunities for consistent peer relationships. Continuity and community are essential for students to thrive. We are a model district in our inclusive pre-K program, and we hope to see this inclusion initiative progress lead into kindergarten and beyond. As budget and strategic planning efforts move forward, I hope to see collaborative discussions that meaningfully address the needs of our special education population, which represents greater than 20% of our district. When we choose inclusion, we choose a future where no child is left out and where outcomes are improved by all students. Thank you.
Good evening, Eric Dowell, I'm a Middletown resident. It's a shame that the public was not allowed to ask Mr. Haber questions because I had several, but I think the board should also consider these questions. First, the optics. You had a plan proposed last year entitled Middletown Reimagined. We chose a better course. What are the optics of an outgoing superintendent spending the last 10 months telling the community that we were good, to engage in robust strategic planning, that the Haber report was going to assist us in that strategic planning in terms of being an open-ended, data-based study, and then finding ourselves back here once again on short notice, having wasted the entire year with what appears to be a scope of work that was just supposed to back up Middletown Reimagined as the superintendent heads out the door. I would next ask Mr. Haber about financial analysis, even though he admitted that he did none. Because that's curious, given the notion is that closing elementary schools somehow saves millions of dollars per year. It does not. Keeping a small elementary school open, the building, costs somewhere between $200,000 and $250,000 per year. Mrs. Alphone admitted it. The biggest driver of operating expense is not buildings, it's people, it's staffing. So if we're talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars per year, we're not talking about closing schools, we're talking about firing dozens and dozens and dozens of classroom teachers. So let's admit that. Next, I would have asked Mr. Haber about the impact on student experience, because he didn't look at that either. We're talking about closing 2 elementary schools, both of them excellent, by the way. 1 middle school, excellent, by the way. And we all know and remember that Plan A doesn't stop there. There's 2 more elementary schools that need to be closed to get to the finish line. But he didn't bother to address what we all know, is that that would be horrible for many hundreds of children in Middletown. If that's what we're really concerned, is the kids, the educational experience in Middletown, that's what we should be focused on. Next, he did not consider, and to go to your point, Mr. Avetta, whether we should do this now, next year, 5 years from now. I know that all 3 new members on the board, Mrs. Weinstein, Mr. Avetta, Mrs. Torres, all 3 of you, one of the common themes you ran on was transparency. The look of trying to do this on very short notice would be the opposite of transparency. This community has rolled up its sleeves and said we are ready to engage in real strategic planning. He also didn't address what happens if we don't get new financing. Eventually, we need to pass a referendum. And what happens if the community doesn't support a referendum? And finally, he didn't address community input. That's what we were seeking all of this last year. We had a record-breaking survey where the only takeaways was that the community loves its community schools and the community doesn't want them to close. So as we go forward over these next couple months, I hope the board will keep all those things in mind, because Mr. Haber certainly did not. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm trying to avoid leaning over into this thing like I usually do. First, I just want to thank you for finally addressing.
I'm sorry, could you please state your name for the record?
Apologies. Dan Jewell, I live in Atlantic Islands. So first, thank you for addressing one of the main things that was grating on the Ross Haber report, which is the counterfactual of what happens if we do nothing. The report didn't seem to address that at all, and finally we heard from Mr. Haber as to the fact that we have a real deficit on our hands that continues to exist, and we have to do something about it. So thank you for finally addressing that. So to me, that brings up the question of, do we have any good data as to whether this deficit is primarily due to a spending issue that we need to cut back on, or is it an income issue that we just are not given enough money to support a school system for a town of our stature? For me, I mean, I don't know if anybody has the answer off the top of their heads, but the way that I thought about analyzing this is just amongst our peers, say in our county, where do we rank with how much money we take in as a school district versus the total tax levy? And it's, granted, I didn't come here with the most current numbers, I did this last year. We were kind of in the bottom 20% of our peers in the town, or in the county. Meaning 80% of the towns in our county spend more on their schools than we do for the same tax levy that they have. So to me, I kind of suggest that, and I fully understand that a tax increase, which is one of the obvious ways of getting more money, is probably beyond the third rail in politics. But the big question for me, if I could just wrap up, is...
That was 30 minutes, so go ahead, continue.
3 minutes, but yeah, I'm in the closing section.
No, you're
The
fine.
question.
You're fine.
To me, the big question is, why are our taxes already so high and yet our school spending is so low? I'm sure there's a pig in this budget somewhere, but I kind of doubt that it's on the school side. To me, it seems like it's more on the municipal side. I'd rather not pay any more taxes, but why are we not paying schools so significantly? That's the way I think. Thank you.
Before I get cut off, I thought I'd go. Hi, I'm Kristen Kuntz, Middletown resident. I'll hold that, that works better. I would like to say, I've been to, I think, every Board of Ed meeting that I could make. All the others I watched online. I've been to the strategic planning meetings. I've been to meetings with Kevin Cullen. And I moved to this town. I researched just about every town in New Jersey. And what did I look at? I looked at the school reports. I looked at the grades. I looked at all the ratings of all the schools. And I will fundamentally say that Middletown was not the first town on my list. It was not, but when I started to look at the schools, it came to the top. And I was super impressed with the schools and the education, so thank you for that. And I will say, everybody here, we are all participators in our children's education. Everyone I see here, we're PTA members, we're volunteers, we're here for our kids. And we value public education. And so I think what my question and what I'm feeling from you guys is, what is your value on public education? Like, how much, I feel like maybe philosophically, do you really believe in it? Do you really want it to be the best? Because I look at this town and I say, we could be the best school district in New Jersey. Is that, we have the affluence, we have the resource, we have the talent, we have the talented kids to be that school district. But again and again, we come to these meetings and information is presented last minute. I don't need to get into the data points. Everyone else does a really great job presenting those. But I feel like we deserve data that stands up to scrutiny. We deserve data that stands up to common sense, that stands up to desire for excellence in schools. Like, isn't that why you got into education? Isn't that why you're here? Why don't we strive for the best? My son watches these meetings too. He is a thriving student at Bayshore, but I am partial. And his teachers might think otherwise. But, you know, we come and we're like, and I watch this, you know, I watch the debates nationwide. I don't look at schools at a micro level or macro. I look at it across the board. We've got New Jersey is consistently the top of, is New Jersey and Massachusetts have the best school districts in the country. You know, I've read reports that say Florida and Arizona, you might know what report I'm talking about, but obviously they're not. But why, you know, like.
That's 30 minutes, please.
I wish I could talk for 30 minutes, but no, I cannot. But, you know, on the country, like every school district is going back to small schools, going back to small community schools. You see it time and time again because it works, it's effective, and we see it in our kids. And as board members that got into this for education, I plead with you, like, let's work on our rollout of delivery of information, because we have board members here attacking public. We have board members
Excuse
attacking.
me, that's 3 minutes. We're over 30, so.
You can wait.
Yes.
But we've got board members that attack the public
I'm gonna
on
have
social
to ask
media
you to please
for.
end it there so the next person can speak. It's been 3 minutes.
He doesn't mind waiting another minute. He's fine.
We're trying to keep an orderly meeting here, so I would ask you again to please, your 3 minutes is up, to please.
You know, I've come to every meeting for the last year. I haven't said anything. Let me take my time.
And you can come back again the next meeting and you'll get another 3 minutes.
I'll get back up. All right.
No, the 30
here.
minutes is up, so we're gonna have a couple more and then that'll be the end of that public portion.
Hey guys, you might remember me. My name is
Thank you.
My name is Rowan Young. Yeah, I was born in New York and I came to Middletown for all the schools here, as my mom said. Yeah, let's go. And yeah, Leonardo's amazing, very fun. Also, going Ranger. Yes, Bayshore. There's like so many clubs there. STEM club, math club, and yeah, fun. And there's, yeah, very fun. And yeah, it's kind of being forgotten, which isn't very nice. I was here last time. You might remember me. Hello. Yes, I can call her. So, yeah, very fun.
Aye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Anne Marie Lasquinos, Middletown. So I kind of just want to mirror what's been said in just another way. We were here last week, 2 weeks ago, whatever the last meeting was, and Haber made a presentation. I came up and asked why he did not consider the middle schools in his presentation, and he said that he was not asked to do that. 2 weeks later, we come back and he has a proposal that will affect middle schools. He kept saying Bayshore, he kept saying two schools closing. Obviously, if you move 2 schools into Bayshore, Bayshore students have to move. He kept saying special education was going to get moved. Are we seriously talking about moving all of special education into one building and taking them out of, we're not?
No,
Okay.
that's not viable. We couldn't do that.
I understand that, but that is what he was making it seem to sound like by saying special education can move.
He meant, let me clarify.
Please.
So when he did his original study, he did not take into consideration that we have district-wide programs. Pre-K is one, some of our special class programs are as well. We can locate them anywhere. Part of our overall goal is to create logical sending pathways for special education students in those special class programs on both sides of town, so kids don't have to zigzag. So in his latest iteration, he was able to be more mobile with those classrooms that are currently designated for pre-K and self-contained special ed, special class programs, knowing that we were going to be relocating them anyway to create those logical pathways. When he gave his first presentation, he was showing, I'll use Harmony, easiest example. He was showing that building at capacity because he was only looking at the classrooms that house general ed students. They have, I believe, 15 classrooms that are dedicated to pre-K and special ed. That, I'm not saying they shouldn't be there, or we shouldn't have some of them there, but they're mobile. So he was able to look at that factor in his latest analysis.
And was it just the elementary special ed that he was looking at for that analysis?
Yeah, and these analyses start with elementary because certainly that's gonna feed into your other grade levels, right? Because you're, and even the elementary iteration would include some kind of changes in the feeder patterns to middle school because we do have some illogical lines, and we do also have to even out the populations in the middle schools if we're gonna retain 3 of them. And there are ways to do that.
Because my fear is that the decision's made and we're just unaware of that. And, okay, because, and I pray that that's true. I pray that we don't come back here in 2 weeks or next week and that there's a motion to vote.
Right, and I think the proof in the fact that there is no decision made is that we're kind of like in this suspended state with the budget right now because we don't have a consensus on how we're closing that gap right now.
Okay. And so I just want to take into account again that we are in the same position that we were last year, where I don't want to be the one that makes the hard decision. I don't envy you at all. I don't want to be the person. I don't want to be the one that has to stand up here and say that the footprint, as Deb Wright said, has to change. Ultimately, I think we probably all know somewhere down the line it has to change. I think we understand that as a community. The overall consensus is the way that it keeps going about it. And that is the problem that we're all having repeatedly now for the 2nd year in a row, is the way the information is being brought out to us. And there's been strategic planning meetings that were supposed to take all of this into account. I have not heard anything about what happened at those strategic planning meetings, like the ultimate outcome of those meetings. I don't know if that has been discussed or not, and I dismissed it, or how that's playing into the decision of what happened.
The strategic plan is more about broad goals of the district. Obviously, facilities and finance come into play in that. We're meeting next week in subcommittees to start setting goals for each of those broader areas. But let me just make something clear. The strategic planning process that doesn't decide if schools are closing or not, right? Like, there are recommendations and certainly we hear feedback, but that is not the purpose of strategic planning, to decide, are we gonna close or are we not? It's to create broad goals for the district to move forward in a variety of areas, facilities, finance being one of those areas. So next week, we are starting that process again, now that we have some more information from the Haber report, from feedback from the community, to start setting those goals. And we have, each committee has a community liaison that's gonna be leading that charge. So that's where we are with that.
Okay. So I guess my last question is, and just pure honesty and the best of your ability, could there possibly be a vote on closing schools as an option for the coming in September? Just so that we're aware, whether it happens or it doesn't happen, but is that an option that we should all be prepared for and understanding of, and just of transparency, is it an option? If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, great, we'll keep going on. But I think that we, as the public, deserve to know, just tell us if there is an option that we could walk in here at some point between now and June, that there would be on the table that schools would be closing in September.
I think we'll just say at this point, we're evaluating all options. You know, I don't think anything's off the table. At this point, obviously, we're hearing other iterations of things that could be done. I think the board has to decide what iteration is the best, number one, and also the timeline for that iteration to be implemented. No one's saying it's necessarily September, but again, I'll go back to the numbers that Mr. Avita presented and Mrs. Doherty in the Finance Committee meeting. We are in a much better financial position. That is not a lie. I mean, 19 million and 3 million are much different numbers in my book. But that doesn't mean we're out of the weeds, right? Like, we still have a lot of work to do. Whether or not we have another year of bought time, you know, that, yeah, could we scrub down that 3.2 million with other things, but at the expense of what programs? I'll just say that, because again, 3.2 million is not a small amount of money. So that's where we are.
And with that, we want to get to the last two people. It's
Sure,
3
I
minutes.
understand. I just
Okay.
want to thank everybody for their time. And
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm going to speak very loudly because, as anyone who's in the audience knows, if you've ever watched from home, the audio is terrible
Can
at
you
home.
please just state your name?
Jessica Smith, Middletown. So just so you know, the audio when you watch from your home, from your computer, is absolutely terrible. So I just want to bring up the fact that I have looked into, with great detail, the information that came out back when your campaign was running, Mr. Aveda and Ms. Weinstein. And first, let me actually state before I forget, I don't know if I look familiar, but I actually represent one of dozens of parents, possibly hundreds in this town, who were blocked on your campaign Facebook page for absolutely no reason whatsoever. I, a mother in this town, I represent one of those people, just so you know. So when you were blocking people for making factual commentary, I am one of those people. I remain blocked. I don't know if you still actively use it, but I do remain blocked on that page before I continue. Secondly, my main point of why I'm here is because I, like so many parents in this town, I read all the information that came out during your campaign about the donations that were made to your campaign and where those were sourced from and who made those donations. I'd like to point out that one of the PACs that donated to you, most of those donations, if not all of them, came from people who benefit off of school closures, okay? And to make matters worse, Mr. Aveda, Mrs. Weinstein, Mr. Cody, who I know is in the audience, to make it worse, not only, I believe I saw him in the audience, I could be mistaken, but not only did those donations come from people who benefit off of school closures, but those donations to the one PAC from which you accepted money from were donated, cash check to that PAC before the information was ever made public about the school closures last year in the early part of 2025. I'd also like to let you know that I have done my homework and I have talked to the New Jersey School Board Association. So before anyone on this board tries to tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about or that this is not a good idea, I want to share with everybody, everyone here, an idea that no one here has thought of, and that is this. Anyone who accepted donations from someone who is already under contract in this district, I don't think I need to name names there, anyone who accepted donations from people who benefit off of school closures, anyone who has a campaign, who has a treasurer, who is also the treasurer of other PACs and other coalitions who benefit off of high-density housing being built in neighborhoods like ours. I am going to ask that you recuse yourself from voting for school closures. That is my request. You should recuse yourself from voting. You do not have a right to make a decision for my children, for any of the parents in this room. You do not have a right to make a decision on their future based on the people that you've taken money from. And that includes Mr. Tobacco, Mrs. Tobacco, and Mr. Capone, because if you help set them up with any of these political people and you travel in the same circles for people who benefit off of school closures, you are in the same category. You're in the same category. And I checked with New Jersey School Board Association. No, I will wrap it up when I'm done.
No, you'll, 3 minutes.
I would ask that the other board members, there should be a motion that if you accepted money from people that benefit off of school closures or anyone who's under contract in this district, that you should be unable to vote on those matters. And I really believe in that in my heart, I do. Because I'm someone who has a very strong moral compass, I'm someone of strong ethics, and I do not agree with what's going on here. I do not. Good night.
Scott McPherson, Middletown resident. Dr. Alphone, you said in your community update, much more stable ground. That's what you said. Yep. We asked time and time again about this budget since last year so that we didn't find ourselves in the same exact position we were on March 18th of last year, and here we are. Do better. I suggest that you have next Tuesday's meeting in the auditorium, and if they're using it for the play, have it in the cafeteria. Have space so that everyone who wants to say something can be here. Figure it out. Do better. Riverbank? He said Riverbank. It's River Plaza. Come on. This is who we hired? This is who we're taking direction from or advice from? How many times did he say that when you were in private session, in executive session? Not at all?
Well, that's because we stopped the executive session. Let's be clear about that too.
Right? So yeah, one of the notes that I wrote down and one of the comments I made outside is, should he be speaking to you during executive session? Is that one of the exceptions to the executive session, Mr. Burns? I don't think so. He said he didn't do the study? Did he say that? Am I making that up? No, he said that, right? Then why is he presenting if he didn't do the study? Where's Mr. Ammon? Our kids are not just simple concepts. That's what he said, simple concept. It's a simple concept. You need to start with our kids, not end there. You have a real opportunity to do what's right for the children of this district. You know that closing 3 schools is not right. You know that overcrowding Thompson and Thorne is not right. You know that moving 121 students is not right. Be adults, figure it out. Administration, that's why you get paid. Board members, that's why you ran. It's unfathomable that we're in the same exact position we were last year. I'm at a loss for words to how we wound up here again, especially when we asked time and time again, what's going on with the budget? Let's be more transparent. Let's communicate to the public what's going on. And again, just a total failure, just disappointment. Do better, be better. Thank you.
All right, this time I'd like to close the portion, public portion of the meeting. Motion to adjourn. Discussion, all in favor? Opposed, abstentions.